Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Matthieu De Kalbermatten, CEO of CellProthera. CellProthera is a regenerative cell therapy developer specializing in ischemic disease and recently announced a partnership with SEQENS at their new European cell therapy facility for its upcoming US and EU phase 3 trial. And they're in the middle of an 8-month tech transfer process. Matthieu, welcome to the podcast. Let's start off by discussing a bit about you, please. Your unconventional background, I suppose, in electrical engineering and how that brought you to what you're doing today.
Okay, thank you, Luke, and nice to be here at the podcast. Yeah, I'm an engineer by background. I've been studying in Switzerland in ETH, sorry, in ETH Zurich, and I was always interested in innovation. And my first career path was, as you said, not necessarily in healthcare, but in a big engineering infrastructure project. I've been doing some research for 3 years in Japan and then taking over some big project, turnkey project worldwide in India, etc. So learn a lot about engineering in general. There's a lot of machineries inside and so on. And at some point of time, you want to see more, you want to see even more innovation because electrical engineering is somehow something that has been discovered in the 1800s by the last guy who really discovered the equation of Maxwell. And from there, it's all incremental improvements. But healthcare is such a huge field of innovation. I was very much attracted to see whether we could change the way we treat patients. And I think today, within CellProthera, this is a total paradigm change that we are proposing here. It's not an incremental change anymore. We're really proposing to cure people. We take the power of these stem cells that can, these are stem cells that you have originally as an embryo in your body and it's going to create any kind of organs in your body. And we're trying to take the power of those cells to regenerate damaged tissues. So it's something that hasn't been done before. And that's why I was so much attracted to join CellProthera 8 years ago.
Thank you. It'd be great to understand a bit about how the therapy works. So if we take Prothera sites, for example, how does that actually regenerate cardiac tissue after a heart attack? And what is it about your approach which is different?
Well, then first of all, you really have to make sure you understand stem cells and you understand which stem cell is doing what, which has been a topic for research the last 20 years. And now it's quite clear that people understand that CD34 positive cells, those cells that have a positive CD34 marker at the surface, are the ones that are most adapted for the regeneration of heart tissues. And in fact, they have a very strong power in revascularization. And there's something that people may not know is that you have more than 50% of cell content in your heart that are actually vessel cells and not heart muscle cells. So if you have a heart attack, what the first cells that get destroyed is the vessel cells, endothelial cells we call them. And if you can't regenerate those, then there is no point to try to regenerate the heart muscle cells because they won't get oxygen, they won't be perfused, as we say, and so they won't really recover. So the CD34 positive cells are very good in that respect. And then what we do differently from the others is I've been the only one to be able to multiply those CD34 positive cells in a big scale because stem cells, those stem cells are actually staying very quietly in the bone marrow in a steady state situation. And they do not like to multiply in vitro in a machine or outside the body. So that's been 15 years more of research within CellProthera, and even before that in a research center to understand how we could trigger these cells so that they multiply and collect enough of those cells so that we can have an impact on the tissue. Because once you think about it, heart attack is if it's a serious heart attack, and this is the type of patients we are addressing, you are losing 1,000 cells, 1 billion cells, sorry, or even more. So you really have to get a lot of stem cells injected to replace it, to regenerate the damaged tissue. This is I would say, the key elements. And of course, we also have developed a therapy that uh, focus on a specific patient profile, that is those that are the best responder, because there's one more important element here, is that if you have a, let's say, a advanced heart failure patient, let's say 2 3 years after a heart attack, at that time the lesion is being replaced by a patch, a fibrotic patch, and there is no real signal sent to the cells that you're going to inject. And if you don't give them any signals, they won't know what to do. It's like injecting into the healthy tissue. So you
Mm.
really have to be quick. You have to come up early after the heart attack to make sure that at that time the lesion is still producing all these so-called chemokines, these signals, so that the stem cells that you inject are going to have to be activated and do their job.
How long typically would your process take for the patient?
So the patient really has let's say, a first initial part where we need to collect his blood, because we talk about autologous therapy. So we really start from the patient's own blood cells. This is about a 5 days process where we inject subcutaneously a mobilization factor that will trigger some of the cells in the bone marrow so that they start to circulate within the peripheral blood system. We take a blood harvest. That's about an hour, and then this is the initial part. Then we do our production for about 10 days, and then it goes back to the hospital for a 1 hour injection. So the
Mm.
patient itself is having, let's say, 15 days where he needs to be giving his blood first and then being injected.
One of the areas that cell therapy often struggles with is by being a very manual process and making it hard to scale. How are you using automation to make things more scalable and faster?
Yeah, that's something that CellProthera has been addressing really from the beginning, with the idea that there will be it's not a rare disease, there will be a certain number of patients to treat, and how we would do that if we are having this manual process, as you mentioned.
Hmm.
So we decided to work with partners, industrial partners, and based on our instructions, start to get a first step into automation. That's why we have now actually an equipment that is able to automate part of the process. It works with automated device and disposable kits. And for
Hmm.
each patient, we use one kit. And this system is on autonomy for about 9 days. So this is going to help us to scale out so that we can produce more patient in parallel at the same time. And then it's also a way to remove part of the viability of the process that is sometimes, operator
Hmm.
dependent. And we already have a certain viability in this process because we have a sourcing materials that is coming from a patient that is always different, right? So if you even on top of it introduce additional viability in the process, you end up having a product that is very difficult to manage in terms of release quality criteria. So
Hmm.
that's why the automation is helping. And we should not have a fully automated system, and I would not recommend to do so at the real beginning or even during the development process, because there's always some change that you may expect between a phase one and phase two, or phase two and phase three. And if you've been too far into automation, you may have some issue and struggle to change it later on. So there is an interest in automation. It's definitely a must to reduce viability, increase scale out or scalability, and also reduce cost, by the way, because that's
Hmm.
another very high challenge for cell therapy, that we need to be affordable for the healthcare system.
Yeah.
But you have to put the last, let's say, touch in this automation at the real last end of your development plan, which is phase three, during phase three or end of phase three.
So you've had to develop this manufacturing technology, the stem expand yourselves, have you, in-house?
Yeah, so we are biologists and we do have a lab, but we don't have the industrial infrastructure to really build a machine. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why we've been managing projects that have been, for some of them, actually financed by grants, European grants as well. So we were the, let's say, chief of the orchestra with several different partners who would provide, mechanic infrastructure and software engineering and things like that, so that we have at the end now a device that is really fully functionable.
Fascinating. You mentioned the European grant. How are you generally finding investment at the moment? I mean, it's been quite a challenging climate, I think, for cell therapy, for investment, whether that's from private equity or government. How have you found it, and what sort of advice would you have for others who are interested in securing funding?
It's true that the last few years have been a little bit tough for some different geopolitical reasons, and nothing much related to the success or failure of cell and gene therapy in general, but more that there's been some other independent issue in the market. But there is money around. There are people who investors who wants to invest, and I'm still I mean, this is still a great achievement to bring a new therapy for patients. I can't think of anything better in terms of the underlying aim, or the underlying sense that you give to your investment. So you would find people enthusiastic about bringing something really uh, new to patients in needs. And as you know, there are still a lot of unmet medical needs. So I'm not pessimistic. If you have a good project with a very strong ambition, yeah, then you can find the financing. It's not like you have money pouring in all the pockets, even if the project is not very strong, is not very impressive in what it can achieve. But if you have, and I think cell gene therapy is one of them, proposing such a radical change and improvement in the type of therapies that have been unable to do something before. You just think about curing, it's a regeneration of damaged organs. It's not about treating symptoms and trying to keep a person alive a little bit longer. We
Mm.
really talk about changing, regenerating, bringing back into the original function something that was, uh, dysfunctional. So that's sufficient to be enthusiastic for many investors.
Mm. Good to hear. And congratulations. I mean, we said at the top, you just recently announced your partnership with SEQENS to take you on to the next stage, to get you to phase three. Be interesting to learn more about what the selection process was there. Why was it that you chose CellforCURE by SEQENS as your manufacturing partner?
Well, there was a different criteria, of course, but one of them was to really find a partner that would be able to partner with us also after phase three,
Mm.
in the commercialization. And for this, really, you end up having a lot less offers on the table because, as you know, cell and gene therapy, there's a lot of early stage development ongoing with CDMO that have the capacity to co-develop, to help you in the development of the process, but there are not that many CDMO with commercial expertise,
Mm.
so that they know what is regulatory wise, what is production wise, the challenge once you have to produce on a regular basis big quantities. And this is why we end up having a very short list of two, three potential suppliers. And
Oh,
yeah,
is that all it is? From your analysis of, well, I suppose, were you just looking at European CDMOs?
yeah, we're talking about just European CDMOs here,
Yeah.
right? The US is another story, but there are a lot more CDMOs. But we finally end up having let's say, a short list of two that really
Mm.
fit with our requirements. And out of these two, we finally decided to go for CELLforCURE. And you have to realize that this group has been really fully operational on a commercial setting for CAR T when they were under Novartis. And so they have a very strong expertise in how to yeah, have a full production from storage to delivery that is super reliable with the best state-of-the-art equipment that you can find, and they were very competitive as well. So yeah, that was a good fit, and it's really not because we wanted to stay in France because we are a French company,
Mhm.
and it's really not the case.
But it makes it easy, doesn't it? If you want to go on like site visits or see the team.
Yeah, well, the other ones were in Europe and was quite easy to access
Mhm.
too. Super easy, let's say, this time. And Paris, they're based in Paris. This is a very good hub to connect to all the other different places in
Mm.
Europe, because don't forget that we want to have a European scale phase three. We want to deliver the product in various different countries. So it's important to be well positioned in a good hub with a lot of transport options.
Okay. Brilliant, brilliant. And so presumably you're in the midst of tech transfer at the moment. Be good to understand how that's been. I mean, it's, at our event CDMO Live earlier this month, one of the things we had was a focus on technology transfers, and we had a roundtable where people were discussing it, and around 50% was saying that they have experienced quality issues going through tech transfers, and the need to have robust processes and project management and different things like that to make sure it goes smoothly. What's your experience like at the moment?
Well, it's we are let's say at the initial phase, and we are taking a little bit more time than you one would think of in this preparation phase, just because we anticipate exactly what you said, that you may end up having some quality issues and misunderstanding. So we are taking extra time now during the first 2 months of tech transfer preparation, let's say, to really make sure both teams in both sides are completely aligned in terms of documentation, in terms of understanding, in terms of training of the people on the other side.
Hmm.
This is something that we have experienced before. We were we were tech transfer in three different locations, Europe and Asia, a few years ago, and we wanted to be fast, we wanted to be quick, and this is not something like you do from within a few days. And if you go too fast, you end up having a lot of disappointment, and you finally, at the end of the day, you lose even more time. So I would say the key here is to accept to spend a little bit more time at the preparation stage, make sure everything is well designed, defined, and the superb teamwork between the two teams so that you end up anticipating all the potential risk. And yeah, the contractual side has to be also well done. So that's why it's important to have an experienced partner so that they also know what could happen and how we should deal with those things when it happens.
Hmm. Hmm. Very interesting. What advice, Matthew, could you share with others, other biotech leaders who are in the midst of scaling up and taking on manufacturing challenges? What advice could you share for those going from like an early clinical phase up to phase three?
Well, it's of course, you have some financial constraints, which means that you sometimes want to rely on yourself mainly and not and try to do it yourself. But there is a lot of expertise around the world. there's a lot of experts and consultants that have been through this type of issues that you may face, and it's very much better to pick up this information quickly instead of redoing the same mistakes. So
Mm,
that would be my first recommendation, is to really go and look for the top experts in any issue that you face, not trying to solve everything by yourself. And secondly, it's to really anticipate what could be the situation in the market once you are market proven. If you wait too long before having a thought about automation, about having a system that is reliable, that is economically sustainable, you may end up at the end of phase three with a product that works, but it's just not possible to sell.
mm,
So there is a really important aspect. And once biotechs actually sometimes really think mainly on clinical development, clinical trials, and not so much on the industrialization of their product later on,
mm,
which is actually not to be um, left aside, and really starting early without, and as I said at the introduction, on the other side, not going too fast into a fully automated system, so that you keep a little bit of margin of viability for your process to adjust in case during the clinical development you see some need for change. Just to say that in our case, for example, good example, the whole process was developed based on a blood collection from healthy donors, people with 25 years old.
mm,
We healthy people, very good blood cells, very powerful blood cells that you can expand, that you can culture. It looks marvelous. You have always beautiful results and yields. And then you end up starting your phase, clinical phase, and you have only 65 plus year old patients with a lot of comorbidities, plus a severe heart failure, and the cells do not react the same way. So you have to adapt your process there, and struggle to find a way to still make it a product. So if you had already everything fixed and you think your process is fixed on marmor forever, it's a mistake.
what are your thoughts on what's on the horizon for cell therapy more generally? I mean, are there any particular conditions which you think would need to change, whether that's regulatory or financially, so that cell therapy becomes more accessible to more people? What's it going to take?
It's really, we have to work on production costs. Really, the cost of those therapies is still high. Can be justified if it's an orphan drug, orphan disease for sure. Uh, but otherwise, the process at this stage are still, you maybe because of economies of scales, because it's a evolving topic where there is a lot of customization of each reagent. Any ingredients that you use in your process is different. It's produced in small scale, so you always pay the maximum price for each of the different elements that you need. That's not helping, and it looks like at the end the product was going to be, you need a super high selling price to recover your cost. So here's the is key. How do we make this production cost much lower? I think in terms of raw materials, this is as soon as we'll have a few product in the market, a uh, big quantities being commercialized, then you will be able to have some larger scale production of these raw materials. So that's one
Mm,
thing. Then it remains, if it's autologous or personalized medicine. So you really have to get machines, equipments that can help you to scale out, so that again here you can have multiple production at the same time and reduce your overall infrastructure cost. If you end up, if we can prove, if the first one or two first cell therapy can prove that they are very commercially viable and making good money without having to be a million per dose, then the whole investment will follow,
Hmm.
and there will be more of those products in the market, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great to hear. So you're feeling pretty positive then about the future.
Yeah, because this is the promises of the science is so great. It's so important that yeah, just to think about these autologous therapies, you inject your own cells, right? You have no side effects. It's absolutely um, is completely safe, right? The cells of your body gains into your body. What's the problem? There is no need for any immunosuppressive drugs that have all the side effects you want. This can be administered sometimes intravenously, subcutaneously. It's very minimum impact for the patient.
Hmm.
So where there's a lot of things that you can solve with cells and gene therapy. It's coming along, and I think you see the acquisition M&A transaction of the recent past. See that there are more and more of those therapies that are being now of interest for big pharma as well.
Really good to hear. Final question, Matthew. I read somewhere that you're an avid mountaineer. So I'm wondering, are there any parallels between climbing mountains and building a cell therapy company in the current environment?
Well, I think it's definitely very similar because first of all, you have to be prepared for a long ride, right? It's the climbing is not something that is done. If you go for 4,000 meters, in my case, it's been 7,000 meters or up. It's a long process until you get to the top. You need to be prepared for that. You need to be prepared for some how do you call that wind or weather changes
Hmm.
during the way. So you have to get always a little bit of security somewhere, and you have to find the right path. And the path is not given, is not written on the north face of a mountain. You have to go here and there. It's once you are on the face on this ridge that you know exactly. Okay, I have to take left. This seems to be easier than right, less dangerous. And step by step, you end up at the top of the mountain. So challenging, resilience, get to be very well prepared, and you are discovering the situation. Once you are there, you have sometimes snow where you were not
Hmm.
expecting to have snow, so it's a bit slippery. You have to take maybe some different type of shoes and so on. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities there, I would
Yeah,
say.
have a good pair of boots.
Exactly.
Matthew, thank you so much for sharing this with us today. Fascinating speaking to you today.
Pleasure, Luke. Thank you very much for your time.
For more external manufacturing insights, head to cdmolive.com and download our 50-page summary of the event. Make sure to book your ticket for CDMO Live 2026, taking place the 27th to 28th of May at the World Trade Center Rotterdam. We look forward to seeing you there.